right. Thank you for being here. Kristine Genovese, writer, teacher. I think we could say healer. I think that's going to be in there. What is the divide between conscious and subconscious? And maybe more clearly, why do they exist and how do they work together?
Wow, that's a great way to start this conversation. Thank you for such a deep thought. Happy to share that with you. First of all, we have a conscious mind and a subconscious mind. And our conscious mind is where we do all that thinking, strategizing, calculating. We spend a lot of time up in our heads, right? But the subconscious mind is actually where we process our emotions, we hold our trauma, our beliefs are in there, all circulating around. Our subconscious mind, it's really good that it's running the show 95% of the time. Otherwise, we would not breathe while we're sleeping. But it is also the hardest thing for us to shift because we have to use 5% of the mind to shift 95% of where everything is. And so I often say that our bodies, our physical bodies, are a barometer to our subconscious mind. Meaning when something goes wrong in the physical body, it's your body actually your subconscious mind telling you what's going on. For example, if I wake up with a pain on the right side of my neck, most people are like, I must have slept funny. Well, our necks represent flexibility, right? It's the right side of me. And so for most of us, the right side of our bodies are male. So that usually means the guy in my life is being a pain in my neck and he's being inflexible or I'm being inflexible. So my body's actually telling me what needs to shift, what needs to go on. But when we start talking about levels of consciousness, you can actually measure different emotions, okay? Emotions are supposed to be energy in motion. When energy gets stuck or pools, especially within the body, that's when it causes dis-ease, dysfunction, or a dissonance in your frequency, and you have to pay attention to it, or if it's something that's more severe, you have to go to a doctor to see how you shift it up and out, right? So when we talk about measuring frequency, people like Dr. In Power versus Force, okay, in that book, you can measure emotions. And so at the bottom of the scale, there's a lot of things like fear, guilt, perfectionism. That pulls you out like really low vibration versus the top of the scale, which are things like joy and peace and love. And so living on planet Earth, most of the time we kind of start at the bottom, right? With life is happening to me. That's kind of in terms of consciousness, the he said, she said, what happened, the drama. Then the next level is when you get to, well, life's actually happening for me. Like, what can I learn from this? How can I grow from the situation? What's the opportunity for me? What is this situation showing me? Who's mirroring something back to me that I need to heal within myself? Right? It's kind of that next level of awareness. Then the next level of consciousness is life is happening through me. And that's really where I am most of the time when I'm doing my soul intelligence work. I actually feel a power greater than myself. I refer to it as the divine of all that is, come through me and share with me what needs to shift for somebody. And that's when you're in that theta state, that state of sort of meditation or prayer. You feel like the divine is working through you or talking to you, or you're listening to the divine. And then the last level, the highest level, is life is happening as me, right? That's when you kind of lose yourself at the beach and the waves and that sound, and you feel almost like you're a part of it all, right? And that's where the Buddhist monks hang out. But the second you get out into traffic, boom, you're down at the bottom because somebody cut you off. So we're not expected to stay at those higher realms the entire time because we're here on planet Earth where we're expected to experience duality so that we can learn how to be these divine, in-aligned beings while here on this planet of, light and dark and all the duality opposites that we experience. So how's that for a start?
It makes sense. With then the reason we're here, experiencing this duality, what would that be? Besides the experience, why divide the conscious and subconscious up so much?
So why divide the conscious and subconscious up?
Yeah. Why restrict humanity, the human, from being able to understand all these things more easily?
I think it has to do with it depends on your worldview, your life view, but my view is that we are eternal, divine, spiritual beings having a human experience. And so we carry all of this stuff and we have to carry all of the experience of those lifetimes somewhere. And that hides within the subconscious. And I believe we come here with an intention to fulfill our life contract, experience certain things. We agree to be in certain conditions or families or things in order to learn the lessons that we came here to learn, to continue to be these divine spiritual beings having a human experience. So it's got to go somewhere, right? And sometimes that trauma, right, gets stored in our cells and can carry over from previous experiences or timelines or lifetimes, depending on how you look at it. And sometimes it's also where the body chooses to put current lifetime experiences and trauma. Like we either suppress it and push it down because in the conscious mind, we're not ready to deal with it, or we, because I think it gets back to, we'll start with third grade science class for a second. I think we
Okay.
forget that we are all protons, neutrons, electrons vibrating in an electromagnetic field. We are all energy, right? And once energy is created, it can't be destroyed. It's got to go somewhere. It has to transmute into something. It has to be transferred into something else. So my understanding of why everything has to be stored there is we can only process so much information at one time, and things come up from the subconscious mind as we're ready to deal with them and shift them from this lifetime or others. It's kind of like your big CPU, the storage unit.
Hmm.
It's my best way of putting it.
Yeah, it makes sense. It's one of those things where I think that the reason we're here is experience and perspective.
Hmm.
I guess I haven't put it in the way that you have. Like, you've obviously thought about it more than me, but
It's kind of my space, right?
it makes sense, and I think it's easy to explain. And to me, I would explain it in the terms of programs or computers, as you just did,
Hmm.
or in the idea of video games. I think that's an easier way to explain it to a broad amount of people that maybe, I mean, you're going to have some experience with the idea of what a video game is. But even if you're
Yeah.
thinking about Pong or some advanced game, and
Well,
then
oh,
go ahead.
sorry. You just made me think of something. I just don't want to forget.
Okay, it just explains a lot to me. I mean,
Yeah.
it makes things make sense, and we might not use the same words. Like, all of humanity may not use the same words to explain things, but I think it's clear that we're all thinking very similarly.
Yeah. I think people forget that we are energetic beings because we're physical, we're corporal, right? You can feel or touch another. We don't always feel connected, even though we are energetically. So if you think about, everybody just takes for granted that their cell phones, gives them information from social media. Well, where does that come from? It's an energetic transfer, right? How am I able to see you via this platform StreamYard right now or Zoom? It's an energetic transfer. We download and stream movies and content and all kinds of crazy stuff from 5G. It's an energy transfer. It literally comes out of thin air, but we accept that. Yet I don't think we accept that we're energetic beings, and consequently we attract things to us, things that we like and things that we don't like. Especially emotion, energy, right? When I was in corporate America for a long time, and we were always told, like, no, there's no room for emotions here, right? There's no crying. There's no crying in baseball, like Tom Hanks said in A League of Their Own,
Mhm, mhm.
right? We're expected to push those down, suppress those things. And the more people understand about their human beingness, is that emotions are the root cause of most of our illnesses, physical, mental, and otherwise. It is that energy that is not moving in the body. And, my method, Soul Intelligence, isn't the only way to shift that, right? You can do things to shift it, like exercise, dance, movement. That's a way to shift energy in the body. I'm an avid tennis player. I know we're both in Florida, so that's a big, big pastime of mine. And that helps to move energy through the body. Going to be out in nature, like I mentioned, being at the beach and being able to be just grounded in that sand or listening to those waves, that can reset, your body and help move emotions out of the body. But that's typically when I'm working with people, what the root cause of all illnesses, which is why I'm in the field of holistic healing.
So basically, we're just conductors.
Pretty much, right? We have an electromagnetic field. So sometimes what you're holding, you're actually absorbing for your partner, right? People you're closest to. Sometimes you're holding on to stuff that's been passed down to you through your family line, and you're working on a pattern or a trend that needs to shift for them too. So it's really fascinating when you get in and you start seeing what's actually showing up, right? Because if you think about it, if you're this electromagnetic being in an electromagnetic field, you're constantly receiving energy. You're constantly feeling vibrations and signals. Like I tell people, like, think about that. You walk into that really uncomfortable cocktail party and you're like, ugh, I got to make all of this idle chit chat. You just like feel when you walk into a room. And sometimes you walk into a room where all the people, you're excited, you're ready to have fun, you're pumped like at a concert, and your energy field is wide open. We can feel and sense energy, right? And it's just a matter of how much do we allow in versus how much are we able to process, for ourselves and for others.
It makes sense. It's good stuff. It's things that I think people understand because deep down they know, and they just either don't have time to pay attention to it, or for whatever reason didn't pay attention to it. Maybe it's the mask of laziness or whatever, or survival of humanity. Like, we're put here for whatever reason. I think it is for the perspective and experience that you never, well, maybe a lot of people don't examine life deeper as to why we're here. But
Yeah.
and then some people get aggravated if you say, well, this is a simulation. And I think that that's the same word for reality. It's just a different understanding of it. Like, it wouldn't change anything if we were a simulation in some computer. Something still created it. Something is outside of it. And reality, what is reality really, if not some sort of simulation? I don't know.
If
What
you
do you think about that?
I think if you think about universal laws, right? As above, so below. On the outside, it's the same. On the inside, it's the same reflection. And everything starts internally, right? It starts up here, right? With the intellect, with the idea, with that electric part of the electromagnetic field, that electric spark, right? That you have to have an idea, you have to have a creation, you have to have a thought first so everything starts internally before it manifests externally. And what reinforces things and keeps things recurring are things like self-limiting beliefs, like I'm not good enough, or I'm alone, or I'm invisible. Like, there's lots of them. Other things that keep things locked in place is a pattern, a belief, a role you've always played in your life. So that's how people see you and identify with you. And I think when you remember that you're the only one that can change, and you have to change from the inside out, once you change internally, externally, things shift. And that's because the electric spark, right, is the idea. That's the initiation in the electromagnetic field. But what magnetizes things to you and bring things in are emotions, okay? So your subconscious mind, the cool thing about it is it doesn't know time. So when you can fully believe and stand in your mission, your vision, your power, your purpose, and be in full alignment with who you are, that divine part of you, you can actually shift things much quicker, because emotions are what collapse that particle wave and start aligning and organizing. The universe aligns around your thoughts, emotions, and beliefs. And that's how manifestation works, this mysterious thing that everybody's talking about today. But it's so whether you call it, to your point, whether you call it a hologram or simulation, it is truly you creating your life. And I think that's the hardest thing for somebody to grasp who's at the bottom level of the consciousness scale. When they feel that life is truly happening to them, they stay stuck in those beliefs. They stay stuck in those patterns. They think that's who they are, that's who they need to be. And so the subconscious mind keeps recreating, right, all of those set circumstances. So whether it's I need a different partner, you end a relationship and you wind up being in partnership with someone who's identical to the person that you just left, even though you thought they were different. It's because you don't believe that you deserve to have the relationship you truly desire in your heart, right? So it's getting your mind, your heart, your soul, or your soul intelligence, leading with your soul intelligence and being in alignment. So years ago, there was a book called The Secret. It was also a movie. I don't know if you remember that. And it's about 20 years ago, roughly. And what they did is they talked about how, saying those affirmations could help shift your life. And that's part of it. That's the mind part. But what truly brings things in is what Neville Goddard said: emotions are the secret, because your subconscious mind responds to feeling. So even, when I'm shifting things for people, one of the things I do is I try and talk to them about, okay, so now you need to put yourself in a position to use something I call a sacred soul script, but it's basically future casting, okay, where you start, writing out, maybe 6 months from now, a year from now, what does your life look like? Who are you with? What are you experiencing? What are you feeling? Where are you going? What are you doing? How do you carry yourself? What do you look like? Whatever those things are, but with a lot of emotion and a lot of feeling, a lot of belief. And you write it, and then you repeat it, and you visualize it until it becomes your reality. And I had my own, pardon my French, holy shit moment not too long ago, where I realized, oh my gosh, I was living my sacred soul script. I had written a best-selling book. I'm getting interviewed in New York City. I'm having a New York Times billboards, with my face and my book on it, and a book tour. Like, everything that I have been writing about and manifesting has actually organized and shown up because I finally shifted and became in alignment with who I truly am. So the trick of manifesting is actually being in that energy of belief and emotion, and allowing that to collapse time, and allowing, the divine of all that is, or universe, whatever we want to call it, to reorganize your life around you, the true you that really wants to step forward, the best version of you. But not everybody's ready to shift.
What do you think the reason is that the whole ability of manifesting is available in this reality to the human? Like, why, if we're connected to something bigger,
Mm-hmm.
and we're going through this experience to collect the experience, why is manifesting a parameter of it?
Because I think you're perfecting you, right? You're perfecting. It's kind of like Aquarius, the individual, okay? Yet you're still moving amongst the whole. So we're all connected. So, like, when you start healing yourself, you can also wind up healing other people in your life, or have this ripple effect, like the butterfly effect, right? One thing changes on one side of the earth, the butterfly shifts, and all of a sudden there's a tsunami on the other side of the earth. They're connected energetically, right? And so this is all about energy. It's all about bringing divinity back to this planet. I think there's a big movement right now to help raise the consciousness level of the planet, like starting to operate in more of a peaceful way, as opposed to the constant upset and war and lower force energies that have been at play for a long, long time. I feel like with the shift, which happened just kind of shifting into the age of Aquarius, that's celebrating the individual, right? That's what Aquarian energy is like. But it's also so respecting the individual, but also moving together as a whole in a group towards a common goal. So I think we're in a really unique time period. And I think a lot of us came here as what I'll call light workers or light beings to help shift the planet. I think there have been other lifetimes and timelines that have attempted to do it. So whether people study about Lemuria or Atlantis, those were societies that operated in a different way, really more energetically and more cooperatively. And those societies were here on Earth at one time. And I think we're finally ready for another shift.
Any thoughts or ideas on why this reality is, why it exists? I understand it's the experience, but maybe going farther than that, maybe it's something outside of the realm of the human mind to be able to understand. But why, if we're something outside of this, why put ourselves into this?
Well, to me, Earth is the most challenging playground. It is the place where it's the most dense, and so it is harder to exist here. But at the same time, you don't learn from the round corners; you learn from the sharp edges, right? So if you're really trying to perfect as a being, here's the right place to do it, and here's the most challenging place to do it. I call it Life University. I think that's the best way to sum up here on Earth, life on Earth, Life University.
Would then the life not on Earth be recognizable to the human, or is it something that we can't even conceive of? Is it something that we don't have the ability to think about with the human mind, like restricted as we are to this way of thinking, like not knowing for sure all those other things, maybe having feelings about it, and it's just is whatever else there is to existence something that we could grasp at this point? Or is the whole purpose of existing here to not be sure of the other things? Like, is that just part of the recipe of Earth?
Well, I think part of it is, in order to have a different lifetime or a different existence, you have to suppress some of those things, right? Because if you came in with all of the knowledge of all of the other lifetimes, it's going to change what you're here to do. Now, I do think some people come in with that knowledge for different reasons. And I think many of us are doing what we call awakening right now. So that means almost remembering who we were, what we were here to do, and what our divine mission is. So I do think there is some some shifting going on because it's the right time for Earth to shift. It's the right time for more light to be coming into the planet as opposed to darkness ruling a lot of the planet. So I do think we're actually in that period where the balance is shifting. And I think that, you know, we get to choose which path do we want to be on, right? To your point of the simulation. Do you want to be on that lighter path that's constantly growing, learning, evolving, helping others? Because we know one of the ways you always feel better about yourself is when you help other people, I think, right? And you get in that gratitude space. Or do you want to stay in the construct from which you came into? And so, I was actually in a relationship where my husband didn't want to shift. He didn't want to grow. He didn't want to stay. He just stayed playing the victim. And it was really hard because, you continue to just create this big divide instead of growing together. And so it's very sad to me when people choose not to evolve and not to shift.
Do you think then the purpose of this Earth reality is like a proving ground, a training ground, or is it something different, like just entertainment? I
Hmm.
mean, that seems a little weak if that's the case, but I guess that's the case. Or is could it be a prison? Or, I
Mm.
mean, it doesn't feel like that, but then what a great prison it would be if it doesn't feel like a prison. That if there is a reason for this, that it is more of a training ground or proving ground, because whatever entity we are outside of this, you can always say, this is how I would act in this situation, but you don't know unless you're in that situation. And if you knew everything else after humanity, then it would ruin the knowing of how you would act with just that limited piece of, or those limited pieces of information, that core of yourself, or whatever it is, whatever self is.
Hmm.
Like, do you think then that this reality, what we're living, is a training or proving ground more than anything else?
I think it's more of how to get your soul to progress the quickest. That's what I think, right? I think it's got the most challenging environment for that. You know, depending on your beliefs about otherworldly beings, right, being around in our skies or anywhere else, their societies seem to be, from anything that I've shared or um, kind of understood, that they operate based on love and skill sets and contribution, and are very evolved in that way, in terms of how they operate. And that down here in this plane, it's very different. I also believe in the angelic realms, right? I believe in lots of different planes of existence. I also believe that time is spatial, not linear, but the human mind has to grasp it as linear, right? Because we need to know that there's a past, a present, and a future, as opposed to we've been operating all at the same time in these multi dimensions, right? Our brain just can't grasp that the way we are in this human condition. But I think we can all grasp that there's some spark of divine within us, right? Something within us that lives on. We've seen, or at least I've seen images of the soul actually leaving the body. Like there's this energy that leaves the body, during an accident. They've videoed it, right? If you've ever been, on any fun ghost tours like I was not too long ago, you can see the orbs bouncing around sometimes when you take videos. So you can see the energy, you can see the presence. We know there is a divinity within us. There is something that goes on. And so, we've had plenty of people with near-death experiences come back and tell us what it looks like on the other side, at least in the first transition phase. And I do think you get to choose. Do you want to come back here, or do you want to move into a different realm and have a different experience?
So would you say that dreams are a different realm, or is it just like a bleed over of the human and whatever other realm, that you're bumping up against that border, and it's a little not human, but it's kind of the bleed through of it? I don't know. What do you think dreams are?
Well, dreams are usually your subconscious mind, trying to release. Sometimes it's releasing trauma. Sometimes in a dream state, we're able to go through another dimension or portal, right? Sometimes people are really tired because they're actually living another lifetime at the same time in another plane, another existence. And so they do that in the dream state. Um, so I can't tell you it's one thing versus another thing, but when we're in that subconscious mind, we have access to those previous lifetimes or future lifetimes. Again, with the concept that time is spatial, not linear, right? So you can go there. And I do think some people do. They astrally travel in their dreams. I do think some people use it as a release. I think some people don't dream at all because they're completely needing to shut down. right? And just recoup because the physical body is drained. So I think dreams and sleep are used in a lot of different ways, but it's the subconscious mind releasing one way or another.
What about deja vu?
Oh, that's cool. Deja vu is just you recognizing someone you've known before, or a situation or a place that you've experienced before. And so it's like that moment of recall when you're like, oh, I've done this before. I've been here. I know that person. Or, oh, this feels really good or really familiar. You know, it's your soul recognizing that moment, that previous moment or experience.
Do you think then that that we relive the same times over and over again, like, or could, like, I'll put it in a video game. I'm not a big video game person, but I think this makes the complicated idea a little simpler. If you're playing a video game and you get to a point where you can save your progression and then you continue after that, and if for some reason you get reset, you go back to that point, or you can stop and then come back to that point. So do you think that occurs in our existence, or our, I don't know if plane is the right word, I'll just say the human experience?
Yeah.
Do you think that that we do that, like we've lived the lifetime that we're living as many times as necessary, wanted, or whatever? Like if something happens and we do something wrong, do we get a chance, or we want to do something different, whatever the reason, that you get to go back and go, well, I'm going to start at this point now. In the human mind, you don't know all the stuff that's going on behind there. You just start going, okay, from this point on, I'm starting again, trying either the same way, the different way. I don't know how you change it, because if you don't know that you're having the chance again, I mean, are you counting on any of those millions of different little adjustments to happen on their own? Or is it something you sit back, your eternal self is like, well, I'm going to program this part in, so I make this decision, I'm not sure why, and then it goes forward to see what happens after that? Like, can you fine tune this human existence?
Well, I think we get that opportunity all the time, you know, like even in this lifetime, right? You recreate the same circumstances. Like maybe you fix your home life, but then the work life has the same toxic relationship there. And you're like, wait a minute, how did I do this? How did I have a narcissist at home and now I got one at work? Well, it's because you didn't learn what you needed to learn, or you haven't learned to adapt, right? To working with that personality type, or to put yourself first and choose not to work with that personality type, like whatever the lesson is. I also think you're talking a little bit about the concept of karma, right? If I complete a lifetime and I didn't really learn the lesson, or I played the villain in this lifetime, that I have to come back and be the victim. I think there is some of that, right? To kind of balance it out so that you get a rounded experience and you see something from all sides. I also, you know, when you when you kind of talk about that, when someone chooses to, I think we're given several different exit points in our lifetime where we get to choose, should I stay or should I go? I think if you choose an exit point on your own, like a suicide, that wasn't part of your plan, that wasn't part of your agreed upon life map, that you then come back and have to repeat everything over, so that you get, because that was the commitment you made. There are also such situations when a soul doesn't feel they can complete the mission, to where there is, you know, something that's called a walk-in, where the soul, one soul departs and another one comes in fully formed human form. So there's a lot of different things that can happen energetically and spiritually, but it has to all be part of your own life path for it to, you know, to kind of even out, like you say. But I do think all the time we're given opportunities to go deeper, to learn more, because I don't believe, you know, you've learned it, you're done, right? So many people come to me and they're like, I worked through all my divorce stuff. I went to a counselor. I cried it out. I beat the pillow. I did all the things. How is this coming back? And I said, because it's still held within your cells. Even though we think up here we shifted it, our body hasn't let it go yet. And so you're still repeating that pattern You know,
Mm.
maybe it's showing up in a child now, as opposed to the divorced spouse, right? You're repeating the pattern until you shift and you learn what you came here to learn, what you committed to learning.
Do you think if you get back far enough, like I don't know if it means going through a bunch of different planes or whatever, that here we are, a bunch of eyes in the humanity, in the earth realm. Do you go back from that a layer, back from that a layer, back from that a layer, and eventually you get to the point where we're all one? I mean,
Well,
what do you think about that?
well, I do think we are all one, right? We are all, we know we're all protons, neutrons, electrons, right? We know we're all one. And we come from an energy source, right? We had to come from somewhere, that spark of animation. So I do believe, in, the divine or an infinite source, power, God, goddess, what anyone would like to call it. And I do believe we are able to feel one with that source, even here being on Earth. Maybe not for extended periods of time, but you can certainly feel that. People, um, you know, take drugs and things like that, or, plant medicine or things to zoot out of their body so they can feel that feeling, that oneness with the divine of all that is, again, that blissful feeling. Do we constantly go back to be part of the one? I think that's an option, right? I think it depends on your soul's progression and what you've decided you want to do. Some people, I think, when they leave this realm, have made the decision to be somebody else's guardian angel. And so they're in this angelic form, vibrating a lot faster where we can't see them. Sometimes you can feel them. Sometimes they leave you messages, whether that's through, repeating number sequences, or a song constantly comes along, you hear them, you know them, you feel them. You just can't see them because of the different plane that they're existing on, but you know that you're protected, you know that they're there. So I think you choose the form that you want to move on into. And sometimes it could be with the divine, because, when I'm doing energy work, sometimes it's asking the soul, does it, want to, whether it's moving on to another plane of existence or going back to the divine for rest. I think that's a choice. And sometimes it's coming back into another lifetime, whether it's here or somewhere else.
Here's how I've thought about it, and it all makes sense. It makes sense to me and explains a lot of things of like messages of humanity. Like, I think that we are all one, and I visualize it as, because I'm using a human brain, I can't do it like I think how it should be. It's just my representation of all that's one is just this ball. Maybe it's the sun. All right. So, well, it's a star or it's a ball or whatever.
Okay.
That's how I visualize it. And then I think, if you can do anything you want, if you were the all powerful, the creator of everything, then how would you know these human emotions? How would you know the feeling of helplessness and fear and love and all these different things that emotions are to us, that we explain emotions as? And I think, well, if you were all powerful, you wouldn't know what it's like to be scared of something. So now you have to create this place where you can experience that, in that this realm, this human earth, whatever existence, is taking that everything that's one, with the idea that there is no time and everything is happening at once, that we're all this one, and then you shatter that apart to where you're still all one, but it's into all these small pieces that are experiencing this thing in this reality. Perhaps you can call it a program, a simulation, whatever. It doesn't matter. That we're all experiencing this thing, in that's why you hear people say, well, do unto others as you'd have them do to you. Like, we're all one, depending on if you're looking at the Eastern mind of it. And you say, well, if I could hold in my mind, and this is what you were talking about, I think at the beginning, if I could keep that in my mind, that we are all one, I would treat everyone better.
Absolutely.
But that's not really the purpose of here. The purpose of here is to treat each other badly and to treat each other well. So you can have all those feelings and you get all those perspectives. And if you take this If you look at our existence like right now as one layer or one simulation run, and then think that it's infinitely running, and we're all these different perspectives of it, and that's the purpose of this, is to collect those perspectives and experiences, so when you are one, you know what those feelings are, so you can say, I understand what fear is because I've seen it from all these different points of data collection,
Yeah,
whatever.
I totally agree
That
with you. I also feel like, as a healer, the first thing is heal thyself, right? I can't help someone else heal something I've never experienced or I can't understand. I think the best healers have gone through, their own um, life experiences and challenges and things. And that typically the people that they're drawn to help or that come to them for help are those people that have experienced something similar.
and that empathy is kind of that travel between oneself to the one back to this other perspective, to be able to say, oh, okay, I don't know what that person is feeling right now, but you do, because you are all one. That is you feeling that. You just might not be able to understand it at this point, but you can imagine it, because if you could understand it, you wouldn't be able to, if you were feeling it, if you knew you were all one, it wouldn't mean anything, because you don't have that singular perspective. It's interesting to think, how does the creator of everything understand everything? And it has to be through living that experience or perspective. And how do you do that somehow? So that visualization of this ball of whatever, of everything, you can look at it from the outside, but then you realize that's what everything is inside of that.
Absolutely. What a
How
mind-blowing
then,
conversation today.
yeah, this
Love
seems
it.
like something we've already explained or already talked about, but for creativity, like when you're in the point of deciding to write something, whether it's poetry, prose, paint a picture, write a song, whatever, do you think then, I mean, it feels like a question that doesn't need to be asked because we've already answered it, but my usual view of it, or what I would ask somebody, is, where do you think that comes from? Do you think that's from within you, manifests within yourself, or do you think it's from something outside of you, like a conduit or receiving a message? And I feel like, since our conversation has been so far outside that it already explained everything and the reason for existence, that it makes it more difficult to kind of zone in on this one little thing, because the answer seems obvious. But I guess, how would you answer that question of creativity when you engage with it? How do you feel that's presented to you? Is it something within you, something outside of you? Again, I think I know the answer already, but what do you think?
Well, I can say for me personally, I know it happens through me, right? I know I am in a state, when I'm in that state of creativity or state of flow, I'm definitely in that theta state in communion with the divine. And I do feel that the words flow through me. That's how the soul intelligence method came to me in the first place. I really felt, after an incredible meditation, tears running down my face. I was told there's no way I could go back into corporate America again. It would feel soul crushing. And that it was time for me to step from my zone of excellence to my zone of genius, to grow Brandon Burchard. And that meant that I was going to have to step out of this, corporate um, turnaround specialist shell and step into this spiritual gangster role. And, how do you do that? By still being, grounded and bridge these worlds between, the work world and the spiritual world. And it was very much this creative process where I had to be quiet first of all to hear, right? And I'm really good with both prayer and meditation. I think prayer is sending out your request, and meditation is listening for the answers. And so I think they really work hand in hand in terms of, communing with the divine. But as I was putting the method together, which is, but book of charts and a pendulum, basically, to divine information and what needs to shift for somebody, it literally was like I was remembering and having a recall, and then the divine kind of coming through me. And I know between the divine masculine and divine feminine, the divine masculine creates this safe structure so that the divine feminine energy can create. And it's a very spiral energy. So you really co-create within yourself and in communion with the divine.
Yeah, it's
But it
going
all
back to what
starts from within, right?
yeah.
And in that divine connection. Excuse me.
So
Obviously, I got choked up because I believe that so strongly.
yeah, it does seem like that everybody, when you start talking to them about these bigger ideas of existence, is they all seem to have the same visualizations or understanding on that subconscious level.
Mm.
And they just might not have thought about it, but they know it's there. It's that truth they know is there. And then you can even see back in, like, when people worship the sun and things like that, and you go, wow, I mean, am I visualizing everything being this ball of energy because I was taught all this other stuff growing up and just have that included in my mind, my human mind, of, people worshiping the sun, and of whatever religion programming is installed, and just my experience through life. And then you go, well, or is it outside of me even more than that, that it's the eternal being that understands all those things, and it just leaks through to the understanding of humanity, of your human brain, but you just can't process and understand it simply enough to be sure. I don't know. I think there's things that you're sure of that are just the feeling, but I don't know. What a great conversation, and a lot of stuff to think about.
I love it. I had no idea we were going to go so existential today, but it was pretty cool.
That's good. It's good. I mean, once you understand or have thought about existence, it makes everything else seem so small. And I think that's part of that, maybe what you would call the theta, bumping up against those theta waves of going, there's no reason to get mad at somebody in traffic because that is me and they're living this experience.
And they
But
think they
then,
should be in front of me.
yeah, but then you realize, wait a minute, I'm this creature, I'm this human creature too. And I'm supposed to feel these emotions.
Well, it's
Well, you try
interesting.
not to.
I did a session for a doctor because her husband was like in business with her, and he was the business end and she was the medical end. And she was stressed because she was like, he was kind of overreaching and pushing her to open another location. It was causing friction in their marriage. And she's like, "Can you do a session for me?" And I'm like, "Sure." So I did a session for her. We shifted within her what needed to shift. And then the very next day, she texted me. She's like, "Oh my gosh, my husband's never treated me like that. He was so loving and kind. And how did you do that?" I'm like, "We shifted your energy. So he's reacting differently to you. You created a different space, a different environment. So he felt he could approach you in a different way." She's like, "That's so cool." But again, it gets back to we're all one, we're all energy, right? And when you shift, the people around you shift. And then you don't even know what that impact is to others, others that you don't even know. And that's why I tell people, when you're willing to work on yourself and you're willing to heal yourself and to continue to move up in terms of awareness and ascension, you're helping everyone. You're helping the planet at large.
What's the best way for people to follow your work and find your book and such?
Oh, well, the easiest way is to go to my website, which is soul, SOUL, soulintelligencemethod.com. My book is available. It's called Healing Through Soul Intelligence. It's available on Amazon with Kindle and Audible versions. I do read it myself, which is kind of cool. And also on Barnes and Noble, if someone's interested in that. And I'm going to actually be in a movie, which is a 20-year anniversary celebration of The Secret, with a lot of the major stars from that movie, called The Pillars of Power, that's due out in early 2026 as a 20-year anniversary. So it's yesterday's transformational specialist with today's pioneers. So I'm
Okay.
happy to be amongst, people like Marie Diamond and Dr. Joe Vitale and others that were in the original production.
Nice. Well, your link to your website and a couple other links are in the show notes for people that are interested in that. Thank you very much for your time today. Is there anything that you wanted to talk about that we didn't, or any thoughts in closing?
No, I think just for people to remember that um, self care isn't selfish, it's sacred. So when you decide that you want to shift something for you, remember that impact that you can have, not only for yourself, but for others. I think is probably the greatest message.
Thank you very much. I'll talk to you on the other side of this musical exit.
Thank you.